Hello, my name is Michelle Holmes, and today's presentation is all about setting boundaries to combat burnout. I love this topic, and I would love to welcome you. So please say hello in the chat if you are watching live. If you are catching the replay of this, feel free to put hashtag replay so I know that you are here in the future with me. Feel free to also include what you do for work or your location if you would like to. I like learning a little bit more about my community and the people that my trainings impact. So I would love to learn a little bit more about you. My name is Michelle Holmes, and I am a coach, consultant, author, speaker, podcast host. I am also a dog mom, a stepmom, a soon-to-be mom, and a wife and recovering workaholic. So I bring a unique perspective that I think a lot of the people who resonate with my work can relate to, which is really that high performance, high drive, high, wish for success and constantly working towards that. So I have also lived through burnout and chronic illness, debilitating anxiety, PTSD, adrenal fatigue, OCD, generalized anxiety disorder, panic disorder. I have this whole thing of a plethora of different diagnoses, and that was tough to go through. And so there were a lot of learnings to come out of all of those different, no matter how you want to look at them, if you're looking at just the diagnosis or if you're looking at the symptoms or the experience, there were many learnings necessary in order to fully come out of that, move through it, and thrive now. So recovery of our own vitality is possible. So if you resonate with any of that, please know that you are in good hands. I want to give freely to you to help you on your own journey as well. And here's my philosophy. So high performers have so much to give. These are the movers and the shakers of our time. We like to get things done, and we like to do a good job, and I think that can be a huge blessing. I also believe that health is our biggest wealth, and so that needs to be prioritized. Healing happens by way of the nervous system. I didn't know that for a number of years. I also believe we are never broken. So no matter what you're going through, please know that you are not broken. The experience might be insanely difficult, very traumatic, but we have the capacity to survive that and to get onto the other side of that. And we can flourish. So my company is Flourish by Michelle. That's kind of the core pillars that make up my own beliefs and why I do some of this work. So my work connects around connecting the dots for people about what's really going on for them. So for me, like I said before, I had that long list of things, but no one ever really connected the dots for me. That was all something I had to advocate for and find out on my own. And it took a number of years. And so I would like to connect the dots for you, give you a bit of a shortcut there, so you don't have to sit there and struggle like I did for so long. I also love educating, and so that's one of my most cherished parts of my business, is to educate people. And so I want to be able to bring this knowledge to you because it is out there, but sometimes we don't know what to look for. So if you are burnt out, that's what this training is about today, is setting boundaries to combat burnout. So you are in the right place if that's you. If that's not you, no worries. Don't know how you found me. But we're going to have a couple of things that we're going to talk about today. So if you want to take the steps to improve your level of burnout with boundaries, perfect. This is going to be jam-packed for you. We're also going to talk about why this is such a good strategy and how helpful this can be to us, specific to burnout. I'm going to tell you a few ways that we block our own progress in this, because boundaries are not just for other people, they're also for us. And then we'll talk about some mistakes and common pitfalls of setting boundaries as well. So why don't we jump right in? So I have a beef with massages. And it's kind of funny because I love massages. I used to get massages on a weekly basis. When I was dealing with panic disorder, I really ramped up the self-care because that was kind of like survival for me. So I got massages on a weekly basis. But I want to ask you, what do these things have in common? We have massage, we have a wonderful looking vacation, and we have a glass of wine. What do these things have in common? Feel free to put that in the chat or in the comments, depending on where you're seeing this. And I'll tell you what I think in just a second on what these things have in common. So for me, when I look at these pictures that I've included here, of course, I put these together on this slide. So what came to mind for me is massage, vacation, glass of wine. These are all things that are truly external to us. So you think about getting a massage, that's great, super relaxing, feels so good, but I'm not getting a massage when I'm stuck in traffic and really stressed out. Vacation takes planning, takes money, takes time, resources, really important resources that maybe we can't really give or we don't have, or of course, all of us, we're not living on vacation. So vacation is that thing that happens maybe once, twice a year, maybe a few times a year if we're lucky and if we are really intentional about putting that time together for us. But the vacation is something that we have to go to. And what I also like to think about when it comes to vacation is all of the mental load in that as well. Sometimes the vacation is not so refreshing as we wish it was. We just went on vacation, my husband and I. We went to Honduras, and it was great, but I broke my toe in Honduras, and it presented some challenges for us, and traveling while pregnant also presents some challenges, especially to a foreign country. Different mental load components, right? And then a glass of wine. A glass of wine can be great. I personally don't drink, even before I was pregnant, not a big drinker at all. I see that kind of as a crutch, and it has its place, but it's not for everyone. Some of us don't want to participate in that. And that's not something that when we're in a meeting with staff at work that we can bust open our glass of wine, right? If we're sitting with our kids, maybe we don't want to drink in front of them. And so we need these things that are not just the external answer, because sometimes these aren't the answer for everyone. So the problem with self-care as we know it is they're typically outside solutions. They take time, money, and planning. I was spending a pretty penny for my weekly massages there for a while. And we can't do most of them while we're at work or with the kids. And so they're not really life-friendly. So we do need to take care of ourselves, especially if we are feeling a level of burnout. So we absolutely need to prioritize that. The way that I'm going to suggest to you during, the next few minutes of us being together is by boundaries. and really getting to understand that concept so that we can use that to take care of ourselves. So the beauty of boundaries, this is why I love this topic. It's creating moment by moment support. So that's something that we can use in any situation. It's totally personal to us. It's 100% free. You don't need anything for a boundary, and it prioritizes our own well-being and safety. And in a way, a very deep way, which you'll learn about, it also comes down to helping that self-relationship, which if we are burnt out, is something that a lot of people have been lacking, is that true connectedness to self, right? Burnout just doesn't happen overnight. So what is a boundary? So boundaries are limits that we set for ourselves about what we will or will not tolerate. They aim to keep us safe. And I'm going to go back to this little GIF or GIF. I don't know how you say it. Is it GIF or is it GIF? Please let me know. Is it like the peanut butter or is it like a GIF? Anyway, so what is a really good example here, which is why I've included it, is this is Pam from The Office, and big fan of The Office over here. We love The Office. So a prime example of boundaries is in one of the episodes. It was after Pam. If you're not a fan of The Office or you don't know what I'm talking about, I'm just going to give you the high level overview. So Pam, she ends up getting this new job at the Michael Scott Paper Company. She's got a new position. Eventually, she returns to her old company. So the Michael Scott Paper Company dissolves, and everybody comes back. And while she was at when she was at the old company, she used to be the receptionist. And so she used to answer the phones anytime they would ring. That was a main part of her job. And when she left and she went to this new company, she took on a new role. So she was actually a salesperson. So she got promoted. And when she came back, all of the old employees were trying to kind of peg her into that old role that she had. So they were used to her being the receptionist. So this was new for the whole company that she was returning to, that she would no longer be receptionist because that was one of the terms. And so the phone rings, and the new receptionist, for whatever reason, wasn't there. I think she was out sick. And the phone rings, and everybody looks at Pam. And they're like, are you going to get that? And tension is building as the phone keeps ringing. And so they're expecting Pam to take over and answer the phone, even though that's no longer her job. What I love about what Pam does in this scene is that she does not cave to the pressure. She keeps that boundary. So it was really important for her. It meant a lot for her to be able to have that new role and to not be pegged as just the receptionist. That was a big deal for her. So she didn't answer the phone. That is an example of a boundary in action. So I like to start with that example here. So they aim to keep us safe. We'll talk a little bit about that as well. So they're not limits for other people necessarily. I think that is one of the misconceptions about boundaries. They exist for us, by us. So we are the person who's defining those boundaries, and we are the ones who are in charge of enforcing them as well. So this quote is by Glennon Doyle of Untamed, which I have not read the book, full disclosure, but this quote has circulated online for a couple of years now, and I just love it. It's one of those quotes to live by, quite honestly. So she says, every time you're given a choice between disappointing someone else and disappointing yourself, Your duty is to disappoint that someone else. Your job throughout your entire life is to disappoint as many people as it takes to avoid disappointing yourself. I think that can be such a powerful quote. Like I said, a quote to live by. Please let me know. Put untamed in the comments if that resonates with you as well. So let's talk about how we block our own progress with boundaries. So this graphic here is something that I think a lot of us can relate to, especially high performers, especially professional people. But what do you see with this? So I'm going to name some things here. When I look at this photo, this graphic, I guess, because not a real person, but we got a lot of arms here, wearing many hats. So there's a calculator, she's taking notes, she's drinking coffee, she's on the computer, she's on the phone as well. Stack of papers on her desk. She looks very put together. I mean, she looks fantastic. And it just seems like she's got a lot going on. She's not smiling. She actually, she looks like maybe she's a little bit stressed. Maybe she's a little bit burnt out as well. So multitasking, overwhelm, we can say, caffeine to keep her going, doing too much, I think that's pretty obvious, wearing those many hats, maybe having some burnout, some stress, some resentment happening. Now, if we examine further in our own lives, we may have some resentment, very common for people who are burnt out to have that experience. We might be taking on too much, and usually we are. We might be wearing many hats. So what did these things lead us to know about ourselves? We have that resentment, we're taking on too much, we're wearing many hats. This, for me, is failure to communicate or possibly enforce, if we've communicated them already, our limits with others, right? That resentment is coming from a boundary that has been crossed, usually, and it could be a boundary that we've not defined, we've not communicated, or we've not enforced, but we have these little like micro breaks in our life. And so resentment is a great example. Doing too much, wearing those hats, we are not communicating that we can't take it on. And so, like I said, that does come to that relationship with ourselves as well. Sometimes it's a learning experience because we thought we could take it on. If we look at some of the others here, we have that overwhelm, we have that stress, unhealthy caffeine intake, right? We're trying to make our life go and deal with everything that's coming at us. And for me, that's failure to abide by our own limits with ourselves. We are in charge of if we are getting overwhelmed, like we make those decisions, we make those choices. We are the ones who are saying, how much caffeine do I think is good for myself, right? So we want to have those healthy limits, those healthy boundaries with ourselves, for ourselves as well. And sometimes people find themselves in the position where they are completely out of that relationship and they're doing things and they're feeling triggered. They're feeling like they have to do all of these things. They're feeling the pressure. And so we're the ones who are able to say, no, that's not how it's going to be for us. So let's just take a moment to fully digest that. We have two parts. We have a failure to communicate with others. And then we have that failure to abide with ourselves. So all of this is like the beauty of boundaries here. So the remedy is effective boundaries for us. So there's no failures, just discoveries. And I want to go on a journey with you. So let's go on a journey. And for this journey, you might need to buckle up, because I am not going to sugarcoat it like maybe some people really like to do, because I think that you're ready. I think you're ready to hear this. You've made it so far, so you're ready, right? Buckle up, as Gordon Ramsay would say. So we have lots of contributing factors when it comes to our inability to set good boundaries. We might have overcommitted ourselves. We might be controlling. We might have a lack of support or a lack of resources here. We might be unwilling to receive. So that comes through in many different ways. Unwilling to receive help, support, money, financial resources. We might be a people pleaser. We might be that office mom, right? The person who's like, I gotta have my hands in everything that happens here. It's like I'm in charge. We might be unwilling to delegate. May have anxiety underlying that's driving some of these choices for us. We might be enabling other people or enabling ourselves. And we might be codependent on either side. I also think that some of our inability to set good, effective, healthy boundaries has a root in limiting beliefs. So I've included just 5 limiting beliefs here, but usually when I work with someone one-on-one, or even just during some of the trainings when we have some time to talk and go a little bit further, we can see that a lot of people resonate with these limiting beliefs here. The need to earn rest. So typically the people that I work with are high achievers, high performers, like successful professionals, and their limiting beliefs have gotten them to where they've wanted to go. Unfortunately, what people find is where they wanted to go, where they've ended up, doesn't actually fulfill them in the way that they thought. So it's like they were sold this dream. They were working towards this dream, and then it didn't really pan out the way that they hoped. So if we look at some of the limiting beliefs here, so we say, my work is hard. My salary means I must always be working. So if we have someone who's getting paid a lot of money, or has an important job, right? They feel important. They feel their job is important. And they might say, my work is really hard. No one else can do it but me. And they're applying things to that as well. So they're saying, well, my salary means that I better do a freaking good job. Another limiting belief is I'm not worthy of support, of getting a higher salary, of help, of asking questions. There's that fear of imposter syndrome as well. I can't trust anyone to do a good job. I can't trust anyone to take this on. I don't have enough time. That's a huge one. So if any of those resonate with you, please put them in the chat. So I like to think of these limiting beliefs with a glasses analogy. So we have rose-colored glasses here on this lady on the left. And I think that's a really good example, because limiting beliefs become like the glasses that we see the world through. We don't necessarily know that we're putting them on. We could put them on when we are very young, right? When our world is forming, usually under the age of 7. We have these thoughts and these experiences, these painful past learnings of what it's like to be in the world based on our experience and based on the things that we see, that we hear, that we know about. So we put those rose-colored glasses on, and these become the glasses that we see the world through. So it colors our world view. So in the example of my work is hard, if we have internalized that it takes hard work to be successful, and that's very meaningful to us, maybe we have a dad who didn't spend a lot of time with us because he was working so much, and he was successful, we might internalize that and think work takes a heck of a lot of time, and I'm not really going to be fully present if I'm doing a good job because I'm prioritizing the career, right? So there are so many different examples. But I want you to know that everyone has these life experiences that start to color their world. And that's what the limiting belief is. So how can we get out of our own way? So we must start tuning in. So we're going to start tuning in, and I'm going to show you something that you can do starting today. So this quote by Viktor Frankl, he is a neurologist, psychologist, and a Holocaust survivor. And this is a really great quote from him that I think demonstrates what we need to do in terms of the work here. So he says, between stimulus and response, there is a space. In that space is our power to choose our response. In our response lies our growth and our freedom. So I might come back to this quote here, but to give you a little bit more, between stimulus, so think about like stressors, between stressors and response, so between stressors and how we react, there's a space. In that space is our power to choose our response. For a lot of us, it's a very, very tiny space in the beginning. In our response, what we choose, how we act, how we behave, lies our growth and our freedom. So that's where the intentionality comes in. Okay, so disappointment does not always register as disappointment. Sometimes it actually manifests as resentment, overwhelm, anxiety, these different things that come up with these how we feel. But if we're not tuning into ourselves, we miss the signal altogether. So when it comes to burnout and when it comes to setting boundaries, there are a lot of huge amount of emotions in that. And there's a huge amount of physical, mental, emotional components that make up our experience when it comes to burnout and setting boundaries as well. So we might be looking at our life or being in a situation where someone has crossed the line with us and we feel disappointed. But if we get even further, we might feel like some other things too. So it's important for us to kind of have this relationship where we're uncovering those things. So we're uncovering, okay, what's the anxiety here? What's the overwhelm, the resentment? What's at the root of that, right? And we can flip-flop. Maybe we're feeling really anxious, but the driving emotion there is that we are disappointed in something. We are pushing ourselves in an unhealthy way. So either way, no matter how you look at this, it's really important that we start to tune in to ourselves and our emotional experience. this is where self-regulation comes in. So self-regulation, emotional self-regulation, is our ability to manage disruptive emotions and impulses arising from those emotions. So we're regulating ourselves. If we look at this out of just the emotional component, we have the physical regulation component. So we are essentially just referring to our ability to self-manage, and self-manage when things are not just hunky-dory, right? So we have emotions that come up, we have impulses, we have physical impulses as well because of how we're wired. We want to be able to regulate that. So I like to think of this as, how do we keep our cool? How do we keep our cool? So there's many techniques, right? Many techniques, totally. We have a couple funny ones here. I love the vacuuming the dog. Right? He's cool as a cucumber, and we need to relax. You can do that in many different ways. You can relax, but some of them are not stealthy. So I want to teach you something that you can practice anywhere, that you don't need anything or anyone except yourself, and that no one will know about. It's also important, I don't have a slide for this, but it's also important for us to differentiate that relaxation can look a little bit different. Sometimes we think we're relaxed, but we're like detached or dissociated, or we're checked out. Like our body feels really calm. Even with burnout, I actually had a discussion with someone one time, and they're like, you can't tell me that people who are burnt out don't have a relaxed body. They're completely burnt out. They're so exhausted. Of course their body is relaxed. And it's like, no, they're not relaxed either. They're not regulated. They are, in fact, experiencing an involuntary immobilization. So they would love to move if they could, but they can't. They're exhausted. That's not true self-regulation. That's not true relaxation, the way that we're looking at it here. Just because you're exhausted on the couch doesn't mean you're relaxed. So I just wanted to include that. But this technique is the wet noodle. So I want you to think of yourself as pasta. And let me go back here. So I'm going to give you two. So the first one is the wet noodle. And this is something, this is part of our tools for hope. So this is something that, as a coach and consultant, that I teach people how to use these different tools. And so I want to give you this wet noodle as part of your toolbox, right? There's many different tools for self-regulation. This is just one of them. But this is a really good starter for us. So you are pasta. I want you to imagine yourself as a wet noodle. Sometimes it can be fun to do the whole visualization. So I'll guide you through it. Close your eyes with me and just take a deep breath. And I want you to think from the top of your head, like you are an upright spaghetti noodle. And I just set you into a pot. And I am pouring boiling water over you, but you love it because you are pasta. So you're going to get loosey-goosey. You're going to get flexible. You are going to yield and relax. And your bones are keeping you up, right? In your human body, your bones are keeping you up. You're fully supported. But all of your muscles, from your head all the way down to your butt and your legs, your toes even, all of those muscles are relaxed. Now, the wet noodle is great. Of course, you don't have to close your eyes when you're doing this in all the different situations that you're going to be in life. But the wet noodle is great because what we're doing here is activating our parasympathetic nervous system. So when we're under stress, our sympathetic nervous system, and if you need or want more education on this, I have entire trainings about this, and we also are launching a challenge very soon to talk more about this and give you like a crash course in 5 days in very manageable ways. So when we're under stress, we have our sympathetic nervous system activated. We are in fight or flight or freeze. That's what's going on pretty much. Fight or flight, and occasionally freeze in a slightly different way. So our system is activated. The nervous system acts like a light switch. So when one is on, the other is off. So one is prioritized, the other is deprioritized. So if we can activate the cool, calm, collected part of our nervous system, that becomes the priority, and the fight or flight goes down. So, it's like that light switch. This is what gives us that pause. This is what prevents the reaction from going into something that we regret, and instead allowing us to get our logical part of our brain back online and to choose, to be intentional. So the skill is the wet noodle. What the wet noodle does for us is we are able to have that moment of being able to tune in because we've mastered our regulation. So we're able to self-regulate. We are able to then make a choice in how we want to respond. And sometimes this response will be a boundary that we want to put down, or that we want to enforce, or that we want to remind someone about. Another way to think about this is PBR. So in college, we did drink PBR years ago, and it's a really good way, easy way to remember. Pause, breathe, relax. Right? Pause, breathe, relax. So you're either going to think about the noodle or you're going to think of PBR. Either way, we're taking that moment. So that creates that space that Victor was talking about. And then it brings us to that intentionality. So we get to choose how we respond. We create the space by self-regulating. When we have that space, the logical part of our brain is back online, and we're able to kind of go through those emotions for us. When we go through the emotions, we can say, oh, this isn't just overwhelm. This is actually some resentment here because I feel like I'm the only one doing anything. This isn't just anxiety. This is disappointment, right? We're able to go a little bit deeper, and we're able to define our reactions as well. So how do we get to be where we are in life? We make all these choices all the time, all day long. Sometimes we make choices that make ourselves really proud. Sometimes we make choices that make ourselves really not feel good about who we are or what we've done. And that's the part that can be really wounding to our psyche. Low self-esteem, right? Moral wounding of, why did I do that? I shouldn't have done that. That was terrible of me to do. We can even affect other people, right? Usually we do. So we're not just feeling bad about ourselves, but we're feeling bad and we're affecting someone else. And so anyway, we want to be able to be in control of our responses and of our emotions, right? Like I said, if you need support in this, there's a 5-day challenge that I am launching very soon, and I'll tell you a little bit more about it towards the end. But that's like a huge part of the work. It's a huge part of the work that a lot of people have no roadmap to completing those exercises, right? We don't know. We just feel a certain type of way, and we feel like we're a victim of how we feel, right? So we get to choose how we respond because we have self-regulated. So this is about boundaries. So let's talk about the building blocks. So we have that self-awareness and we have self-check-ins. So these together can make for some really supportive boundaries. So boundaries at work. I like to include some examples here because a lot of people don't necessarily know, well, what would I do in this situation? I just feel like there's nothing I could do. So let's say, as an example, your boss puts something else on your desk, or a client reaches out, and you already have a lot going on. I don't want you to be a victim of overwhelm, right? So you can say something like, sure, would you like me to prioritize that over what I'm already working on? We need some clarity. You're also communicating that you're not doing it all. You don't have the time. That would be a disappointment to yourself if you needed to stay late consistently, whatever your work looks like. That's slightly different for everyone, but we get to say, okay, what's more important here? Because I'm not going to do both right now. We're not going to answer those 7 p.m. phone calls. We are not going to answer that FaceTime call with a client who's really overstepping. We don't want to FaceTime with them. That's uncalled for. I'm not going to do that. We could say, I'd love to participate in that thing. That sounds really exciting. I am free in 2 weeks and I would love to talk to you then. That is communicating. We don't have the time or the bandwidth or the capacity right now, but we will in a couple of weeks. We don't want to miss out, but we can't make it work right now. You can say, I can do that. Yep. Here is my fee for this change of scope. You have that client, they've changed a lot of things on you, right? We've all had them. Here is the change order. Here's the fee. That this is extra work for me. It's not just something I'm going to say, okay, yep, let's do it. Boundaries at home. These are great for our partners and our kids and our parents. I hear what you're saying and my answer is still no. I'm going to validate what you're saying. Yeah, I'm listening. I hear you. What you're saying is important, but that doesn't change my answer. It's still no. Leaving or downgrading friendships. This is one. If someone consistently lets you down or makes you feel a certain type of way, and sometimes the boundary is, I'm not going to prioritize you as the person I go to with this, or I'm not going to prioritize your phone call. What I'm going to do is no longer have you as that friend. Maybe you're going to be a little bit further on the totem pole, or we're not going to be friends. Sometimes we have to make that call. I will only wash the clothes in the hamper. If you want your clothes washed, put them in the hamper. I'm not going to go cleaning up your room to collect all of your clothes. Great for kids. I'm trying to eat healthier, so I will meet you after you go out to eat. How many times have we tried to have like a weight loss goal and we have a social life and it's like, well, we have to kind of do it, right? We're hanging out with friends. Nope. We can hold that boundary. We can define something. It's important for me to be healthy. Leaving a partner or leaving a party if your partner drinks too much. A lot of times people think they have to completely leave their partner, which sometimes can be true depending on the relationship, but sometimes it's It's stopping the enabling, right? We're not going to take you home after you have done the thing that we've already talked about. We are not going to continue on supporting this choice. I am going to take myself out of that choice, right? Sometimes we are in that situation as well. And then I prefer not to talk to you about that until I learn more about my own feelings on the matter. Sometimes for people pleasers, this can be huge because we'll talk to somebody and they'll have all these types of opinions and all these things that they think that we should be doing. And we haven't even tuned in to ourselves. So we can say, yep, let's talk about that, but after I learn more for myself. So which of these resonate with you? Do you have any boundaries any statements, any off the cuff kind of things that you would like to share? I would love to see them. And let's talk about that eye roll moment. Boundary violations. So what do we do when our boundaries are not respected? This is the $1 million question. Because many times we think that we're doing a really good job. It's just everybody else around us that's not respecting us. That can be really hard. So expect boundary violations. They will happen. Expect them, right? We're all learning about each other. We're learning our limits. We're learning about our friends' limits and our partners, our husband's limits, what is important to him, or the whole thing. So expect that violations will happen. This is not a bad thing. Define an appropriate course of action. So like I said, it's not a bad thing. It is a learning thing. So we're together in this relationship of learning. So we want to define what happens next. What happens if that doesn't go the way that I expected? What do I do? And so that's kind of like plan A. And then plan B is, well, what do I do if this person has violated my boundaries multiple times? What is appropriate for me? Such as a friendship, do I leave that friendship? If it's a company, do I leave the company? Is that appropriate? Sometimes it is, sometimes it's not. So we want to get really clear on the appropriate course of action. So if you don't decide, someone else will decide for you, right? If you don't decide how you're going to live your life, if you don't decide what's important to you in your work life, someone else is going to make that call and they're going to decide for you. So we go wrong, and I see this many times. And I saw this in my own life when I was first learning about how to set boundaries. We go wrong because sometimes we come off way too strong. Oftentimes we'll have an inappropriate consequence, and especially if we're feeling overwhelmed, if we're feeling anxious, if we're feeling burnt out, it can be like that tiny space that we have that we're trying to grow in our relationship with ourselves. That's a small space. We can be activated super fast. And when we can kind of go for the jugular. We can really, right? We can really be harsh in what we do. So for many times as we're learning, when we feel not so great about it, it could just be there's been an inappropriate consequence that we said, oh, you crossed my line, I'm so done. It's like that straw that broke the camel's back. And so we want to make sure that we're being intentional about this, and that this matters to us, and we are communicating effectively, right? So it's going to take a little bit of time to learn and decipher that for yourself. We may have an old boundary that's no longer relevant. I know for me, going through life, the different life experiences I've had, before it was like, well, this applies here, but then my life has changed so dramatically in these different areas that, oh yeah, that doesn't really matter to me anymore like it used to, or that's not really relevant. That's my experience with this person is totally different than my experience with this person. So we want to make sure that we are doing those check-ins. And it does not resonate. Sometimes we have some outside influences where people have things that are really important to them, but they're not important to us, or they don't matter to us, right? We all have these different life experiences. So for a people pleaser, someone might say, oh, I never do that. If that happened to me, this is exactly what I would do in that situation. And that can be great because we want to learn from people that we trust, but we also have to tune in. And sometimes the answer is not, oh yeah, let me follow their advice. Sometimes it really doesn't resonate with us, and that's okay. So above all, we want to consider when we're making these boundaries, our physical safety, of course, our physical safety, our mental safety, social safety as well, financial safety, spiritual safety, environmental safety, and vocational safety too. So we have all these different areas and so many opportunities to create supportive boundaries that protect our well-being, that protect our financial ideologies, right? We have all these different things, our spiritual beliefs. And so we want to get to know ourselves and what's important to us and begin to craft those boundaries around what's important and what matters to us, because we want to be able to be really intentional. So something for you to think about. We get to come back to our own truth, to our own self-awareness, and to our intentions. So like I said, we are really cultivating that relationship. And I want to remind you, get to know the sensations in your body. They always have something to tell you. So those sensations are, we're working on that awareness that we have in our physical body. We're working on seeing it, scanning our bodies, and being able to identify, well, what's going on for me here, right? Like I said, we don't just end up burnt out overnight. This is something that has been building for many of us a number of years, but months and months at a time. These sensations happening, right? And I guess there are some situations that can be pretty drastic and fast, but usually for people, it's a buildup over time. So we have missed the clues. So we need to start looking for those clues. So we have the power to grow. We have the power to cultivate that change in our own lives. We can heal. We are not broken. I would love to hear what you'll take action on today with this knowledge now. Please feel free to put that in the chat or the comments. If you want to connect on LinkedIn, you can scan your phone, this QR code with your phone, or an also easy way is tinyurl.com/MichelleOnLI. So that'll take you directly to my LinkedIn profile if you want to be friends. And I would love to connect with you. If you want more information about the challenge, this is a challenge I am running. It's a 5-day challenge. We go in depth into the 5 components of how to uncover an emotional wound, how to uncover a stressor, what's happening with our own biology, and I'm giving you a roadmap for how to navigate through. So if you have these feelings that have come up that you're like, I don't really know what to do with this, or, do I journal about this? Do I take a walk? These limiting beliefs, all of these different components of our emotional and mental experience, I give you a roadmap through exactly what you do to move through that. So it's like this guide. It's a 5-part process, and the challenge is $47. So if you would like to join us, please feel free to contact me, and I will give you more information, and would love to have you in with us. Anyways, thank you so much for hanging out with me for a while, and I will talk to you later. Bye, everyone.